It is Sunday, June 23rd of 2019, and I'm in Longview Park. It's a little pocket park off of Brody, and it's a nice little park, playscapes and other things. Walking trails to come through, but where I'm standing at is a gazebo here. And from this line down this way to a line down this way, and all back in here, believe it or not, is an historic cemetery. It's known as the Longview Cemetery. It has its origins from the late 1800s. This is one of the sites that the city of Austin says that it maintains this family cemetery. Let's see how the city of Austin maintains an historic family cemetery. First off, inside of the cemetery grounds, they built a gazebo. They put in a fire pit, and most disturbing, they put in a basketball court. Now, this was done years ago, admittedly well before, most likely, our current preservation laws came into play. But the city of Austin would have you believe, by looking at their website, that they maintain this historic cemetery. Let's take a look at that website real quick. Let's move down to the second paragraph. It says the municipal cemeteries include Austin Memorial Park Cemetery, Evergreen Cemetery, Oakwood Cemetery, Oakwood Annex Cemetery, and Plummer Cemetery. The family cemeteries include the cemetery at Longview Park, which is the cemetery which we're talking about today, and then the Stanley Nolan Cemetery at Garrison Park. For your information, the city has no idea where the burials are at Garrison Park. They put up a plaque. The headstones have moved over the years, and the city has no idea. And the cemetery division has nothing to do with that. So the statement that they take care of Longview Park and Stanley Nolan Park are nothing more than fluff, just trying to pat themselves on the back for work that they don't do. All right, so we can see that the city of Austin actually does talk about bragging about how they care for this family cemetery. In reality, this was a community cemetery that was part of a church and a graveyard, and the church served as a school during the week. On May the 4th of 1922, a tornado came through Austin and obliterated this part of town, killing a bunch of people. It's believed that when that happened, that the old rock church building was decimated, as well as the old cemetery grounds that lie over in this part of the woods over here. For years, the city has said, oh no, this is the only part of the cemetery that's here, and this is known as the Boggs Lea lot. And it is a subset of the original cemetery that is back over this way. And again, this whole 5-acre tract of land is listed as a cemetery, but there are no surviving maps from the 1800s or even the early 1900s that display where all the burials are. So, the city has a duty under state law to maintain a cemetery, maintain the fence, the walls, and the other things in the cemetery. This was overgrown. It had been overgrown for many years. In 2014, we visited with the city out here, and this was overgrown. It took a turning in of this property to the Austin Code Division and a code inspector coming out to inform the city that yes, indeed, they did have to maintain their property in a sanitary condition. For the first time in many years, this is cleaned up. But now let's look at the old cemetery that's over this way. All right, now we're standing in the main body of the Longview Cemetery. And this is what the city of Austin would have you believe as being well-maintained, caring for this family plot. This was all overgrown many years ago. In 2014, members of Save Austin Cemeteries, the local archaeological club, came out here. We found the foundation for the old church building, and we did a lot of work over in here trying to identify things. The city of Austin was going to GIS map everything, but they couldn't do anything because of the high tree canopy. We talked about doing an historical designation, and the city said, no, wait a minute, we're going to take care of that for you, and then nothing happened. Recently, I walked through the site with an assistant division manager, Anthony Segura, and none of these trails were here. And then about 2 weeks later, all of these trails showed up. Wasn't happy about that. Come to find out that the fire department, the Austin Fire Department Wildland Division, came through here like a bull in a wrecking ball and started removing a lot of the dead wood to protect these homes over here. These homeowners over here for years have been fighting homeless camps, tall grass and weeds and snakes. So while it was good that somebody in the city actually did something, unfortunately, they removed some of the historic fabric and might have potentially damaged grave depressions in creating these roads and hauling material out of here. And so when the City of Austin Cemetery Division says that they care for an historic cemetery here at Longview, it's just not true. They knew about it in 2014. They did nothing about it, and you still see trash laying around. This little area here, which is pipe and chain, has some graves in it. And again, back in the day, they didn't necessarily have money. And so many of these rocks may have at one time been marking grave sites. Many of the grave sites, the headstones are broken. Had the City of Austin been maintaining this historic property in accordance to state law and city codes, we wouldn't have all of the brush. Now, this area here was cleaned out, I'm assuming, for the code department. And they said, hey, we're done, everything is good. But the problem is there are graves all throughout this area over in here. I'll show you some depressions in a minute. Let's talk about the fence line. The task today was to come in and remark and identify as much of the old fence line as possible, and then communicate this video to the City of Austin. So well-meaning people like the fire department crews, the wildland division, does not come in here and willy-nilly just start removing what they think is old cedar trees, but which are actually posts. So here's a corner post here. The old church and school is down the trail that way, and for reference, here's the basketball court, and there is the Boggs Lea Cemetery right there, the Boggs Lea part of it. So you have a post here with some hardware. I've marked this tree. There's actually still part of the fence coming through here. I marked this tree just so we can see the distance, but you can see here, center screen, there are several more cedar posts here. And so again, we have a clear line that shows at one point where this fence line used to be. Then coming off of this corner here, the presumed corner, now we start having a post here, we start having another post here, and so I've come through here and made a line in the trees, marking posts, and then in some cases marking the existing trees. And again, here's that concrete curbing right here. So here's a concrete curbed area not far from this here. So the Friends in Austin Code Department, this is the area that needs to be cleaned all throughout in here. Maintained in a sanitary condition, no grass or weeds more than 12 inches tall. Wild land. Get rid of all the dead wood. If you open this up, then the city can come in here and very carefully weed eat all of this out, pull it out, and then we'll start finding depressions in the ground. There's a big tree that's leaning out here, and then there's a cedar post right there. So again, you start having a line of fence posts coming this way. I've marked high in the trees, here and here, trying to determine this is our last post. So this, all this area through here, there's no post. So we have to make the assumption that this is a rectangle, and it's a safe assumption. A lot of times when you're working on historic cemeteries, you always give a buffer. And so this is in line with those flags going that way, including the post. It comes back this way to our trailhead, and it's going to come right here. I have to look up my notes. I seem to recall an old cedar post back over this way, not this one that's deep. That's too far out of alignment. What we do have is another line of trees that have wire in them, as well as a tall cedar post back this way. There was 2 of them here. I'm assuming the fire department removed the other one, not knowing its importance. That one there, this tree's got fence on the back side of it. This one here is riddled with wire. You can see the cuts in it. You can see the old wire here. So all along here, back along that way was a fence line. And if we naturally bring this thing in a straight line this way, here we have that imaginary corner where we think it's going to be. So this is not the cemetery right here. This whole area in here is the cemetery. You'll find large depressions in the soil. Sometimes it used to be a tree. Most likely it's a grave site that has collapsed in. There used to be a big one right here. And the city put these posts in and roped it off. There was large depressions right in here. And presumably grave sites. A lot of work to do, but let's call out the city of Austin on this one. They're not taking care of this. Not consistent with city code, not consistent with state law. I suggest they take it off their website until they get it up to speed and in order. Then they can claim that they've done something.